More than 50% has become digital for us in terms of investments. The other 50% is still marketing, events, which, by the way, in terms of pure demand creation, is about 90% of the outcomes.
My time at the same company is that we were practically doing an event a day or sometimes more.
I see it as the event itself on the event day is the culmination of a long-running integrated campaign, right?
Enterprise software or most of the B2B decisions, it's a complex decision. It's very expensive. It's not casual dating. Once you sign on, you stay on for a long time. So you really want to look somebody in the eye and shake a hand before you sign that $1 million deal. It comes to your ingenuity and creativity to make sure how do you draw people to your booth, how do you make sure you do an event or entertain them or engage with them.
I went to SAPPHIRE the first time, I think in 2012, right? It was kind of an eye-opener for me to see the sheer scale of SAP as a company and the kind of the size of the audience and the kind of partners and sponsors, so the whole ecosystem under one roof, which was probably larger than 10 soccer fields.
I mean, that trust hasn't gone away. Like digital works for efficiency, but for effectiveness, I think there is no answer to what a human touch face-to-face does. And again, you have undivided attention.
Other interesting thing was, is there a new piece of information that you're offering? So is there let's say a small piece of research that was done which was exclusive, which is C-level that you want to share with that audience? There has to be some exclusivity to that information.
Obviously, the events are high on investment. And when you do so many, how do you attract partners to co-invest with you? Who are the right partners? How do they share the effort cost? And of course, the spoils. Like you said, my always measure has been that would I go to my event?
Yeah, true.
But if you are able to create some kind of a pull, which will only be for something that matters to them. Hi, welcome to Decoding B2B Marketing Show on B2B Marketing Shepherd. I am Rajesh Kumar, your host for the day. Thank you for tuning in. After 30 years of experience in marketing at companies like Microsoft, SAP, and UiPath, B2B marketing is my playground. I am now a fractional CMO and a board advisor, and soon to be author of a book by the same name, Decoding B2B Marketing, coming out on Amazon. So keep an eye out. B2B marketing can feel like a maze, complex, jargon-filled, and hard to apply sometimes. That is why we brought you this show, to cut through the noise, clear the fog, and give you real, actionable insights from the brightest minds in the game. Today, I am thrilled to kick off this episode with Rahul Singh, VP and Head of Marketing for SAP in the Indian subcontinent. Rahul is a veteran across very well-known technology names like HCL, AMD, HP, Dell, and SAP. We worked together in 2 organizations across 3 stints, and his experience is a master class in B2B marketing. Ready to unlock the magic of experiential events, human plus digital, with one of the best? Let's dive in and decode it together. Yeah. Hey Rahul, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure, Rajesh. Thank you for having me.
I'm curious to know what got you into B2B marketing. What's been your journey so far, highs, lows, and did you hazard it again if you had a chance?
So I think serendipity is the word, right? Like any other professional or young professional back in the 90s, I had no clue what I was going to do with life. But I don't know if you recall, since you hired me once in SAP, I was studying zoology. So I graduated as a zoology honors student. And then somebody in college told me I was a creative person. And that I should pursue a career in advertising or any creative field. And as luck would have it, I ended up in a not so elite business school with not so many opportunities available. But I did get a job as a copy trainee in a fairly I think it was a tier 1 agency. But while I was waiting for, for the term to get over, HCL showed up at campus, and that's how somebody spotted me again. I've carried the mantle of being the creative guy, so they found some creative spark in those conversations, and I ended up in HCL HP at that point in time. And then, of course, ever since I've been a career marketer in B2B technology.
Yes, I know. We worked in 2 companies and 3 stints together. So tell me a little bit about what keeps you going when not marketing. I know many things you follow, from fitness to music to poetry to...
Yeah, so clearly you have to have some kind of a passion beyond the work. There are a lot of people, younger people, who ask you, they generally look at their employment status or their job as their identity. But my general advice to them and to every young professional is that, the job that you do, the one that pays your bills, is only a part of your identity. You need to have several other dimensions. And given that I had very varied interests, I had an interest in sport, so I would follow several sports. But I played badminton, still play badminton on a very regular basis. I do a little bit of cycling, but my first love is obviously creative pursuits like writing poetry in Hindi, and potentially the way it looks like I'm a perennial struggler as a screenplay writer as well, but you never know. So I think those are things that keep me busy outside of work.
So Rahul, let me ask you, coming to the topic of the day, B2B marketing, ever since I have known it, has known to be a huge investor in events of all sizes. Global, local, one to many, one to few, even one to one, round tables, road shows, so on and so forth. Now, digital brought a lot of change to this. There was a point when people said digital will do away with everything. Obviously, that has not happened. And both have come together to deliver experiences. And that's an area you have done a lot of work. So talk to us about how they have evolved, and how do you see this as a important, for want of any better word, tactic used in B2B marketing?
So let's look at it in the broader context, right? If you look at, I think this whole shift towards digital and kind of its position in the regular B2B marketing mix has been growing through this major shift. And as of today, if you look at our marketing mix, I think over the past couple of years, more than 50% of our investments are in digital, right? But if you look at the data, I think digital works at the top of the funnel, right? When you're trying to create awareness in certain segments like our mid-market, which is a very large, potentially 20,000-30,000 companies who may be our potential customers. In that space, if you're trying to create primary awareness, I think digital works, creating something that we call engaged contacts at the top of the funnel. But the notion that digital will work throughout the buying journey does not work, at least not in high ticket, high involvement purchases like enterprise software. So while digital works at a certain level in that buyer journey, it has not been able to replace the human face-to-face interactions which our kind of solutions need. Also, I think digital does work in lower ticket SaaS kind of business models where the entire cycle can be completed digitally. And like I said, while more than 50% has become digital for us in terms of investments, the other 50% is still marketing events, which, by the way, in terms of pure demand creation, is about 90% of the outcomes. Okay, so it's very clear if you want to create real pipeline and demonstrate outcomes, events are still a very important route to market for us. And given the nature of our business, it's a complex multi-solution, multi-persona kind of business. We end up doing hundreds of events of all shapes and sizes.
No, true. I mean, I've also seen in my time at the same company is that we were practically doing an event a day or sometimes more.
That hasn't changed.
Right. But look, if you step back beyond the popular narrative, if you step back, in a typical enterprise software or most of the B2B decisions, it's a complex decision. It's very expensive. It's not casual dating. Once you sign on, you stay on for a long time. So you really want to look somebody in the eye and shake a hand before you sign that $1 million deal, right? I mean, that trust hasn't gone away. Like, I was reading, I saw actually an ad. It says, be more human in the age of AI. So I think that's what is becoming a rarity. Digital works for efficiency, but for effectiveness, I think there is no answer to what a human touch face to face does, right? And again, you have undivided attention because digital, when you're doing multiple other things. It's a interruption. Tell me, how have digital and physical come together to deliver experiences?
So the way I look at events, I see it as the event itself on the event day is the culmination of a long-running integrated campaign, right? While it ends on that day, there is a lot that has gone in, and in fact, there are now technologies available to extend that experience for a much larger impact footprint. But event technology itself has evolved, right? The kind of event we used to do 10 years ago, not just events, the experiential, any kind of experiential campaign, and a good example of that is the Transformation Express that we executed in 2022. If you recall, that had been done twice in 2013 and in 2014. But we realized that obviously SAP.
Talk to us about it. People won't know. Just explain a bit.
So Rajesh, the Transformation Express, while at the core of it was this whole physical bus, a traveling showcase that housed a lot of our solutions across different industries, across different solution areas. But I think, in my opinion, it was a fully integrated campaign, right? It involved physical events. So essentially, the traveling showcase kind of traveled to 13 different cities over the course of about 55-60 days, and it involved partner marketing because each of those locations were kind of owned by a partner. It involves significant amount of social media buzz that created. That's what had changed between 2014 and 2022, right? There was not so much of a social media at that point in time, but that was a whole new dimension, which allowed us to create tremendous visibility. Of course, PR in every tier 2, tier 3 city that the bus traveled to, but more importantly, our ability to generate pipeline had become a lot more sophisticated over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, right? So at the end of it, we touched more than 7,500 net new companies in the mid-market and create a very significant amount of pipeline as well. So I think, like I said, while it was a series of events, it involved a very physical asset as part of the campaign, but a fully integrated campaign was built around it.
No, I agree. I think it's the combination that probably creates, if I can call that, magic, right? It's not one over the other. It just raised the overall level, measurability, quality of experience, efficiency, effectiveness, and so on. Now, I want to make it learning oriented for our audience, because there are so many things under the hood. So talk to us about one by one different events, where they are appropriate, when should you use one, how do you decide, the investment, and how do you measure the effectiveness? So first one I'll take up is sponsorship of industry events and trade conferences, which is like the oldest thing in B2B marketing people have been doing. Are they still relevant? Where to use them?
I can speak in our context, right? Given, like I mentioned, SAP plays across 25 different industries. We have 2,000 plus SKUs that we offer across different functional areas, right? Which creates this whole complexity, because if you look at our core solution, which is ERP, where the core buying center typically is the CIO or the CFO, that is one area where we are really strong, right? But when you look at solutions like HR, for example, that was a completely, I mean, not now, but maybe a decade back when we actually acquired a company which became part of our talent management portfolio. You were now talking to CHROs, which is a completely new audience. If you're talking to supply chain heads, or if you're talking specifically to a C-level audience in an area that is not your core constituency, you need to rely on third-party, could be associations, could be media houses. These are organizations that have developed specific domain expertise, if I may, and a certain amount of clout in a specific industry or a functional area. So if you are trying to target those audiences, you need to rely on some of these third-party platforms. But like you mentioned, the opportunities are very limited, right? You either get a speaking slot or you create an event inside an event, right? Those are largely, yeah, but then it's a trade-off, right? I mean, if you really want to address some of those audiences, and also the other audience which is of paramount importance to us in SAP today is the mid-market audience, where we are trying to target net new companies, right? Which means companies who are first-time ERP buyers. There again, we look at some third-party platforms where we can address them. But then again, you have to be creative. You'll have to, in many cases, you will end up in events or platforms where you will be one of the many sponsors. So how do you create your differentiator within that? If you're a leader in that space, then you need to look like a leader. If you're not, at least look like a great challenger.
No, I see. I think, and I've seen it played in a few ways. One is that when you're a new company, in my stints in the startups I've seen, you don't have the resources or wherewithal to catch all of that audience. So this is like a quick ready-made platform for you to build awareness. I remember one of the companies, UiPath, I worked for, we wanted to create quick awareness in GCC. Even before we hired the team was on board, I think we sponsored some 20 events over a period of 3 months. So almost every event in that vertical you went to, people saw us. And suddenly after 3 months they said, oh, you are here. So by the time team joined, salespeople started going. I mean, probably not measurable directly, but we had the ability to invest. It helped.
See, the other thing is, Rajesh, there are very strong platforms which exist, right, without naming, let's say, a very large research, tech research company, right? Let's say a Gartner symposium, for example, right? Those are platforms where I'm not sure if being there adds great value, but not being there has a lost.
You cannot just afford not to be there, yes. Some of these platforms,
So because need to be present. Right?
I mean, it's like a statement, you have arrived. True. And you are relevant, you exist.
If you're a leader, if you're
and then, like you said, I think because these are many people doing many things, and obviously the organizers are driving many things out of that. So then it comes to your ingenuity and creativity to make sure how do you draw people to your booth, how do you make sure you do an event or entertain them or engage with them. I mean, my thing has been many times to create experiences, create side events, get a lot of your top sales people to go and engage with clients on the side, and and so on and so forth. So thank you for that. So if I pick up the next one is, which again, unique credit to have watched many of them, is the large flagship company events globally and now increasingly in India also. Things like SAPPHIRE Now and or SAP Now in your case, or World Tour, and I don't know what's the new name. And now the Indian companies for the world are also doing their own. Right. What role do they play? Demand generation, brand awareness, partners. Obviously they take a lot of effort and time to get done.
So I'll take it in two parts, right? Let's look at large format global flagship events like the SAPPHIRE event, which we host in Orlando every year. I think I went to SAPPHIRE the first time, I think in 2012, right? It was kind of an eye-opener for me to see the sheer scale of SAP as a company and the kind of the size of the audience and the kind of partners and sponsors, so the whole ecosystem under one roof, which was probably larger than 10 soccer fields, is quite an amazing brand statement, I would say, right? And if I was impressed as an employee, I'm sure it has an impact, a brand impact for customers who are making investments in SAP. It is a tremendous opportunity to network with not only with SAP experts, leaders, etc., but a great opportunity to learn from a global peer, right? For example, if you're a chemical company in India and you want to learn from a chemical company based in Brazil who has done a great job of implementing a solution, those global platforms offer that for sure. Of course, there are tremendous opportunities to create pipeline as well. Now, talking about what we have brought to India in the last 2 or 3 years, because platforms like SAPPHIRE would only get a very small percentage of our customers traveling all the way to Orlando. We've tried to create mini SAPPHIREs in the market unit itself. So SAP Now is our flagship platform, which I think takes place in multiple different major cities across the world. In India, we started doing 2 of them. And now these are very complex events to execute because of the size and scale. The one that we host in Mumbai this year in April was a 4,500 audience event. Wow. Using the entire show floor, which was about 100,000 square feet. The day typically gets divided into 2 parts. So you have a common session, which is the keynotes, which is largely thought leadership, SAP executives, customer showcases, etc. And then the second half of the day is dedicated to solution specific or industry specific breakouts, right? Now, to be able to hold audience interest for the entire day, you need to look at these large format events. The way I see it is, I see it as a filmmaker's project, right? Where you look at every scene, every dialogue, and see does it really resonate with your audience? Is there a meaningful takeaway from every single track that you have created? And that's what creates engagement. Otherwise, you'll have a peak in audience, and then you are empty by even before the event is over. So having said that, to be able to create that kind of experience, and of course there are tons of experiential aspects within the event itself, right? It's a one-stop 360-degree SAP experience that we end up delivering in one flat day, right? The other interesting thing was when you do something at that scale, generally the expectation is that you will get audience from Mumbai and around, but we've seen more than 30-35% of the audience actually traveling from other locations because there is this whole perception of value they have from the event. So huge dependence also from a pipeline perspective, because that event in April was our single highest grossing pipeline grossing event. So clearly, again, underlines the importance of face-to-face events, especially if you are able to create a meaningful, worthwhile experience for the audience.
I agree. I think there are like a brand statement, which only somebody at that size can do. And other thing, and I saw it in one of the smaller companies and I worked with, or still work with, is where we created a larger experience with a media partner like CNBC much above what anybody will expect. And suddenly people wake up and say, oh, you are our league and we should talk to you. You know, you're not a small startup, right? And the other thing I've seen which SAP do very well is use that as a platform for very targeted things, from deal signing to executive meetings to speed dating with partners to executive luncheons, you know, CEO breakfasts. So it actually becomes a platform where you have the whole company, whole might in one place, and depending on who the audience is and what kind of time you have, you can tailor the experience to them.
Yeah, so that's another added layer of complexity in the execution.
Yes, I mean,
because you're trying to, obviously, while it is a large format event, but you're trying to do multiple events inside an event. There are smaller focused roundtables on specific topics. You will have, let's say, global executives traveling for the event. So there are one-on-one meetings. And you, like you mentioned, media announcements. So you kind
analyst day, PR day.
So it just, the event kind of works as a magnet for the audience, and also gives you the ability to consolidate multiple efforts within that platform.
And I'm sure huge task for the marketing team to.
So now that we started in 2023, and then so we have executed 4 or 5 of them by now. So I think there is a certain level of expertise that the team has developed. But clearly, every year is a different challenge.
It's a different year. It's never easy year. So talk to me about 1:few CXO events. You know, what makes them work? Because it was earlier as well, but increasingly, I think people's attention is at a premium. The senior and more, you know, important the audience, harder it is to get their attention. And they obviously don't like to come for anything mass, where their equivalent peers are not there. So how do you think of formats to engage them? And many of them, you know, are from the era where social media is not their primary food.
So fundamentally, I think the fundamental principle of the event, whether it is for a C-level audience or a small format versus a large format, remains the same, right? You have to create a strong enough value proposition for the audience to show up and engage with you over a whatever duration, right? The only difference is the kind of value proposition that you have to create for a C-level audience may be different. It has to be a much stronger value proposition. It has to be worth their time, because their time is presumably more at a premium. So for us, there are 2-3 kind of tactics that we've used, right? One is a format called the SAP Executive Exchange, where you will build something small format around a global executive that is traveling to, you know, somebody that people would want to meet. So it becomes like a C-level peer-to-peer kind of engagement, right, where they see value. But again, these are very, it's a very curated audience in many ways, and we engage with our field sales teams to generate that audience rather than trying to try to do it ourselves. The other format is, especially when you're trying to create value proposition, you have to put yourself in the shoe of a busy C-level executive. And you and me, I'm sure, would get some invitations to attend events, right? The first thing you ask is who else is attending, what is the value, that why should I travel from Gurgaon to Delhi, which is an arduous task, to spend a couple of hours, right? In that quest to find that value proposition, some of the things we see have worked is there a new piece of information that you're offering? So is there let's say a small piece of research that was done which was exclusive, which is C-level, that you want to share with that audience? There has to be some exclusivity to that information. The other, of course, is can you get somebody or an experience which, in your words, money can't buy, right? I think those are some of the things that have worked, and there is really no rocket science to it. But at the base of it is put yourself in the shoes of that person and see whether you will show up there or not.
True. I mean, you won't go for 90% of the things, right? Because you much rather spend time playing.
And we must also remember there is so much clutter in this space because of the limited number of tactics that other B2B marketers are using. Everybody is getting the same kind of exclusive invites, right?
And I mean, and the last thing people want to come for is listen to the company spiel.
True.
So if it's an industry topic, you get peers, there is some new thing to learn, and it's an efficient format. I mean, the days of long evenings are gone. People prefer like a 5 to 6 conversation gone, or a breakfast thing, which is travel efficient, less traffic time, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to ask you about, talk to me a little bit about virtual events. How have they evolved? What works in them? What purpose do they serve?
Well, if you recall, we spent 2 years doing only virtual events during COVID.
It's coming full circle
And
back.
and we were incredibly successful, right? So it appears interesting that you asked that question, right? Do they work? In the absence of anything else, they worked like a dream. We were extremely successful during that period. I recall our team won across multiple market units. We did a much better job. But I remember at that time, that whole medium was, while it had become the only medium available, there was a whole lot of space to kind of experiment, right? There were new things emerging. I remember there were these metaverse emerged around the same time. Then there were these immersive platforms, and I did experiment with several of them with mixed results. But clearly there is, if at the core of it is still the value proposition, right? In the absence of other distractions of great food or whatever else which is augmented experience, the content that you offer has to be of great value to your audience, because in virtual platforms the exit barriers are next to zero, right? So you can simply log off and leave. In a physical event, you are captive in many ways. So fundamentally, it is the content, and we generally tend to use it for something like an always-on kind of a platform, right? Especially in our mid-market go-to-market approach, where we have the series running. It doesn't matter how many people attend. That property kind of continues to generate top of the funnel engaged contacts for us.
Rahul, obviously the events are high on investment, and when you do so many, how do you attract partners to co-invest with you? Who are the right partners? How do they share the effort cost and of course the spoils?
So in SAP, we've been extremely fortunate. The strength that SAP has, as the kind of ecosystem that we have. Also, I think that larger ecosystem, whether it is our value-added reseller partner network or service partners, people who have large SAP practices. Also, new partners like the hyperscalers, right? Everybody is trying to get a share of the pie of the installed base that SAP has, which is probably the most elite installed base in the Indian business ecosystem. So I wouldn't say it's a huge project to really get sponsorships or partnerships. I think the challenge for us typically is, how do we create enough value for them so that they come back the next time, right? And that's something that has really worked for us. I mean, I personally make sure that, like in the SAP Now Mumbai event, I think we had close to about 50 sponsor partners, right?
Wow.
Obviously, the sponsorship that we generate covers a significant part of the overall event costs. But I make sure that we stay true to the contract that we have with them, ensuring that they get the value for the investment that they make. I think that is very, very important. And because of the complementarity of our solutions, because most of these sponsor partners, like I said, are trying to sell solutions or services that are complementary to what SAP offers. So it is kind of intertwined with our GTM, right? So it adds value to the content as well. So they don't come in as just booth partners. Many of them speak in different solution tracks. Obviously, the highest level of the sponsorship would get you a slot in the main stage keynote, etc. But everything that we do with those partners is actually complementary, adds to the overall experience, and that has been one of the reasons for the success of this model for us.
Yeah, actually I think it's a win-win, because when a third party event people go to, their business is events. True. But when they go to another brand, your business is not events. You are just trying to ameliorate your cost. True. Which is hugely different, and plus you both understand the domain, so the likely outcome is much,
So in our case, it is kind of a task to refuse people, because it's first come first serve, so it does not take too long to really to fill the slots. So that is the more difficult task rather than trying to.
Who would not want to be in your shoes?
So that is really a testimony to SAP's strength in terms of the installed base that we have and the great partner ecosystem.
So on a lighter note, I've seen you all your events. You are the celebrity host. So tell us a fun instance of that you have had interacting with some of the best known celebrities and hosting them.
No, we started this off I think with SAP Now in 2023, when we said why don't we add this additional dimension, which would be like an inspirational come and an entertainment piece within the keynote agenda. And I remember we started off with we've done so many sports celebrity, and my brief to the team was, let's get somebody. Number one criteria, it should not, he or she should need no introduction to start with. Okay. If people have to ask who that person is, you have a challenge. I remember the first guest was Zoya Akhtar.
That's the one I remember. It was a brilliant one.
A subject.
She actually invited you to come to Moviedom.
Well, we'll see whether that happens. But that was, so the whole idea was to feature obviously achievers in their specific areas who may or may not be related to the tech business, but in general bring a certain amount of
human values stay the same.
Yeah,
right? So
and some kind of inspirational outcome from that session is generally expected. And then we did a series of folks, right? One of the more interesting ones, the Zoya Akhtar one, of course, was quite interesting because it's a subject that was close to my heart, given my interest in filmmaking and other creative pursuits. But I think one of the more interesting ones was with Leander Paes, which was he was an amazing. He speaks obviously very well, very emotional person, but at the same time really inspirational. So he would get standing ovations every 2 or 3 minutes. So it's very easy to host people like Leander, for example, because they are absolutely brilliant on stage. And then I've done Harsha Bhogle, Ravi Shastri. Again, those are folks where you just need to, a question is just a cue for them to get going. The challenge is to stop them from speaking.
So now my final closing wrap up, we've spent a lot of time on the events. So somebody who's starting off in B2B marketing or is already here for a bit, what will be your top 3 or 4 things you'll tell them to be mindful to use events well?
I think you need to be clear about what the role of event as a route to market is in your overall mix.
Let me expand, event/experiential.
Yeah. So you need to be clear about the fact that events is just one component in a much broader marketing mix. Okay. In B2B, like I said, while people thought it would go away and get completely replaced by digital, but you need to be aware of the fact that it is still just one of the components, and it has to work in conjunction with everything else for it to really make the optimum impact, right? That's number one. Number two is, and it's fairly generic, applies to anything that you do, is a deep understanding of your audience, right? Anything that you create, and like I said, whether you're making a film or writing a song or doing whatever, as long as it is a commercial pursuit, you need to be in the shoes of your customer or your potential customer. Otherwise, you will not be able to create, which basically means you need to understand your product offering, the medium that you're using, and the audience. And that obviously comes with a little bit of experience. But once you have cracked that, you will be able to use not just events, any other tool that you use in marketing to the best outcome.
No, it's absolutely. I think, like you said, my always measure has been that would I go to my event?
Yeah, true.
And that tells you, because it's not a push game. You can keep pushing, keep chasing. Even on the morning of the event, people drop for various reasons which you can't explain.
True.
But if you are able to create some kind of a pull, which will only be for something that matters to them, right? Because business always, not always, but most often ends up happening on the sidelines. If people come and give you their attention, and depending on what your goal is, you are likely to get the required outcome.
And the other one, the last one is, if you are fortunate enough to be able to build something which is replicable and repeatable for a long period of time, I think that works best. It's like an ad campaign, right? The number of exposures that you have, theoretically speaking, would give you better returns. Over a period, of course, diminishing returns. But if you can build a property that you can carry forward for multiple years, I think that is something that one should aim for.
And then people start looking forward to
The people, so you've generated an automatic audience, which has become like your subscriber base in terms of social media, and the overall cost of acquiring audience becomes lower as you go forward.
Top 3 things how you measure return on your effort, investment in an event.
I think the number one true north for us in SAP is the pipeline that we generate. Of course, there are other things which are more difficult to measure, but in general, I think the ecosystem feedback that you have, and more importantly, I've seen these events work as great employee / employer branding opportunity, because I saw that happening post-COVID when we ran the Transformation Express. It truly created massive energy inside the company, especially coming at the back of COVID. And then I've seen it at larger formats like SAP Now, for example, where the entire SAP ecosystem comes together to make it successful. So that itself is great feedback, kind of a great metric to look at, difficult to measure. But I would say, given the huge investments both in time, in terms of time and money, pipeline is probably the best way to measure.
No, that always remains, and I'm reminded when I joined SAP Now or SAPPHIRE Now those days in Europe, and said, this is your onboarding event. And at one glance, in 3 days, you practically met everyone, saw everything, got the whole solutions. So it's a huge value actually. Yeah. So thank you, Rahul. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure, my honor, Rajesh, and huge congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it, and hopefully it will be out soon. Thank you.
Looking forward. Thank you so much, Rajesh.
Wow, what a deep dive into the world of B2B events. I hope Rahul's insights sparked new ideas and gave you practical takeaways to level up your marketing game, and some real behind the scene insights. Big thanks to Rahul Singh for sharing his hard-earned wisdom with us today. If you found value here, do me a favor. Hit a follow, leave a quick review, and share this episode with someone hungry for better B2B marketing. If you got a burning topic or a question you want us to tackle next, reach out. Drop me a line here or connect on LinkedIn. I am all ears. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode. But remember, don't just follow the herd, lead it. You are the shepherd of your marketing success. Catch you next time.